silently preserving age-old rituals that keep the public in total ignorance. And it does not stop there. Secret societies inherited this knowledge and continue manipulating the world using hidden emblems such as the Roman fasces to display power and control. Our collective slumber is not accidental. It is precisely the main mechanism that allows this hoax to continue. Unless we wake up now, we will remain at the mercy of an elite that keeps us in the dark, while they preserve and benefit from all this lost wisdom.
There is a paradox at the heart of modern archaeology. As our investigative technologies advance, we uncover more evidence that challenges the conventional narrative of human evolution. This is not mere speculation. These are documented archaeological anomalies whose explanations remain incomplete within current historical paradigms. Human history today represents only a fragment of a reality that may be much richer and more complex. We might compare ourselves to spectators at a shadow play, seeing only faint projections of what truly happened in the millennia before us. For all its methodological advances, contemporary science still operates within historical models that are beginning to be questioned by increasingly intriguing evidence. A revealing example of this phenomenon emerged when archaeologists uncovered Göbekli Tepe, a sophisticated monumental site dating back to about 10,000 BC. This discovery challenged fundamental assumptions about the development of primitive human societies. Klaus Schmidt, the archaeologist responsible for the excavations, expressed his amazement. We found sophisticated temples where we expected to see primitive huts. Our entire model of human development had to be rethought. This provocative perspective remains on the fringes of mainstream academic consensus. What these findings suggest is not necessarily a continuous upward line of progress, as is often assumed, but possibly cycles of advanced knowledge, decline, and rediscovery. Several civilizations may have reached remarkable levels of technical and spiritual sophistication, only to vanish under the sands of time or in the wake of catastrophic events, leaving behind only enigmatic fragments of their legacy. Faced with these indications, a natural question arises. Where are the concrete pieces of evidence of such extraordinary achievements? The answer might be closer than we imagine, carved in stone, encoded in myths, preserved in ancient texts, and passed down through oral traditions. The challenge lies in our ability to interpret these traces beyond the conventional lenses of scientific materialism and the strictly linear view of cultural evolution. Massive pyramids, megalithic structures, colossal blocks fitted with precision, and medieval maps bearing mysterious details, each element forms a historical puzzle we have yet to fully solve. Independent researchers and academics debate whether these are coincidences or signs of something far greater than our current explain. The fundamental question is not just whether this advanced knowledge truly existed, but why certain viewpoints gain more traction than others when forming our collective vision of history, which forces and interests shape our understanding of the past, and above all, how does it affect what we believe is possible in the present and the future. This investigative video invites us to explore several interconnected domains, universal laws that may govern both material and spiritual phenomena, religious symbols that transcend cultures, initiatory societies that allegedly protect and transmit ancestral knowledge, and finally, our essential nature as conscious beings. The aim is not to dismiss critical thinking, but to apply it more rigorously, questioning entrenched assumptions while also examining alternative hypotheses. In modern thought, the word occultism often evokes associations with sinister or superstitious practices. However, etymological analysis reveals another perspective. The term comes from the Latin occultus, meaning hidden or secret, referring to knowledge reserved for those who are prepared to receive it. Far from being something dark and professional, this field of study constituted an integrated system of understanding the laws governing both physical phenomena and aspects of human consciousness. In the famous library of Alexandria, before its destruction, there was no official separation between astrology, chemistry, and alchemy, physics, and metaphysics. Researchers like Hypatia studied celestial mechanics alongside possible symbolic correspondences, operating under the principle that the cosmos displays patterns reflected on multiple levels of reality. This integrated perspective is summed up in the as above, so below, as within, so without, the idea that the macrocosm and the microcosm are interconnected. Science historian Margaret Eyeless documented how this unity of knowledge gradually splintered. Political and institutional factors created artificial divisions, separating the study of the physical world from its conscious dimensions and leaving spiritual themes exclusively to religion or psychology. Isaac Newton, for instance, spent much of his time on alchemical studies and esoteric interpretations of scripture, yet he is primarily remembered as the founder of classical physics. While observing celestial bodies, ancient civilizations developed calendars and predicted eclipses, but they also drew metaphysical lessons about the cosmic order. Historian Giorgio de Santillana, in Hamlet's Mill, argues that seemingly fantastic myths encode sophisticated astronomical knowledge, such as the precession of the equinoxes, a cycle of about 25,920 years, that requires generations of observation to understand. At the same time, some quantum physicists like Amit Goswami point to possible parallels between non-dual ancient philosophies and aspects of modern physics. Experiments such as the double-slit experiment suggest a profound relationship between consciousness and matter, an idea already present in spiritual traditions that claims the mind is crucial in shaping reality.
What was given is now upon the
Genuine
ground.
occultism sought laws and principles that operate behind what is perceivable, much like science investigates invisible forces, such as gravity or electromagnetism. Various esoteric traditions developed methodologies to study fields and energies that affect consciousness. Astrology, in its original form, was not merely a fatalistic system of predictions, but a lens for understanding cyclical dynamics and their psychological and social effects. Alchemists, for the most part, were not just after physical gold. They often interpreted their laboratory processes as metaphors for internal transformations. Similarly, universal principles like polarity, correspondence, vibration, and rhythm appear in ancient texts and can be compared to modern discoveries in physics or biology. Scientific progress, which focuses on measurable, reproducible phenomena, has largely set aside subtler, more subjective dimensions, but is beginning to reconsider them as it encounters the limits of strict materialism. As Sir Arthur Eddington warned, the developments of modern physics suggest a fundamentally non-materialistic conception of reality. In this meeting ground between scientific frontiers and spiritual traditions, the call is not to reject rigorous methods, but rather to expand them to include systematic study of consciousness. The apparent conflict between science and spirituality arises from historical and cultural separation, not from any intrinsic incompatibility. Accounts from Newton, Johannes Kepler, Giordano Bruno, and others show that for them it was natural to combine metaphysical insights with scientific inquiry. Today, reconciliation gains traction in leading laboratories in fields such as neurophenomenology, neurotheology, and meditation research. Thus, the question is not whether ancient traditions anticipated contemporary theories, but rather acknowledge that different modes of knowing can illuminate diverse facets of reality. True occultism always encouraged critical thinking and direct experience, which is a practice mirrored by those who study consciousness phenomena with scientific seriousness. If the mind is not just a byproduct of the brain, but an active element in reality, then investigating spirituality becomes a valid exploration of the world, not a regression into superstitious beliefs. An intriguing phenomenon in Western political architecture is the omnipresence of the fasces, a bundle of rods tied around an axe. It appears on legislative podiums in the United States, at the Lincoln Memorial, and even on the seal of the US Senate. The term gave rise to the word fascism, and many associate it with the power of the state. In ancient Rome, it symbolized that the union of citizens under a central government granted power over life and death. Its use in modern republics suggests a conscious symbolic continuity rather than mere aesthetic decoration. Researchers like Manly P. Hall have documented the strong Masonic influence in the founding of the United States. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and other leaders were active Freemasons. The layout of Washington, D.C. was supposedly designed with astronomical and symbolic alignments, reflecting ideas preserved in Masonic lodges. Pierre L'Enfant, the architect and a fellow Mason, created a city plan in which key monuments and buildings form precise geometric patterns. David Overson, author of The Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital, analyzed a series of Masonic ceremonies in the American capital, linking them to specific positions of constellations. It is not limited to the US. Europe also witnessed the activity of initiatory societies at pivotal moments. The French Revolution saw significant involvement from those linked to philosophical clubs, Masonic lodges, and other secret societies. Many leaders balanced Enlightenment ideals with esoteric rituals. The famous all-seeing eye in pyramids was adopted in official seals, supposedly representing divine providence or the great architect of the universe. Financial elites of the 19th century, such as the Rothschild and Rockefeller families, funded think tanks and influential groups that gathered powerful figures in private meetings. The aim was to shape political and economic policies on a global scale. Whether at the Council on Foreign Relations or the Bilderberg Group, heads of state and CEOs of major corporations meet to discuss issues of worldwide importance. Some see this as legitimate strategic planning. Others consider it a sign of manipulation or invisible government. At the core of these organizations, architectural symbols and rituals preserve the memory of hermetic and philosophical knowledge. Egyptian obelisks were transported to Rome, London, and Washington, symbolically linking power to astronomy. After all, obelisks were used in Egypt as solar measuring instruments. In Vatican City, in central London, and at the White House, each location bears shapes inspired by ancient traditions. One need not believe in all-powerful conspiracies to recognize symbolic influence. Many of these groups rely on esoteric principles that they believe offer wisdom for governing societies. Of course, there are internal disputes and misuse of symbols. Yet throughout history, initiatory societies have hosted thinkers, politicians, scientists, and artists searching for unconventional ideas, safe from religious persecution or official censorship. Because not everything was transparent, it is understandable that conspiracy theories emerged. In any case, ignoring these influences altogether leaves history incomplete. Many leaders drew inspiration from philosophical visions and ancient rituals that shaped monuments, ceremonies, and even certain legal structures. Understanding this symbolic heritage helps explain aesthetic and cultural choices in major cities and sheds light on how political power itself is organized. The Great Pyramid of Giza remains one of humanity's most puzzling archaeological enigmas. This monumental structure incorporates mathematical properties that Western science would only formally describe in the 17th century. Researchers have identified the golden ratio, approximations of pi, references to Earth's circumference, and extremely precise astronomical alignments. How do we reconcile that with the notion that its builders only had copper tools and simple methods at their disposal? In Machu Picchu, Peru, modern engineers marvel at the precision of the stonework. You can slide thin blades through the seams without finding gaps. Some stones weigh several tons and were transported across mountainous terrain, fitted together without mortar, and remain earthquake-resistant. At Baalbek in Lebanon, blocks weighing over 800 tons appear to have been moved with an ease that still baffles us. Standard explanations fall short of accounting for every detail. Göbekli Tepe, mentioned earlier, dates to around 9,600 BC and features rings of pillars weighing up to 20 tons each. Supposedly, during that era, humans were still nomadic hunter-gatherers without organized agriculture or metalworking. How could they have built something so sophisticated? Researchers like Graham Hancock argue there are traces of advanced knowledge lost after massive catastrophes, surviving only in myths and monuments. Ancient texts refer to golden ages, followed by near-total destruction, forcing civilizations to rebuild. There are also reports of technological artifacts that do not quite fit accepted timelines, such as the so-called Baghdad batteries from 2,000 years ago, or maps depicting an ice-free Antarctica. Others investigate the acoustic and electromagnetic properties of large pyramids, noting that certain materials generate piezoelectric fields under pressure, and that internal chambers amplify specific frequencies. Theories propose that pyramids might have functioned like energetic devices. Although it sounds radical, modern engineers argue that many internal features make little sense if the pyramid was simply a tomb. Whatever the case, there is widespread evidence that ancient peoples had a deep understanding of astronomy, mathematics, acoustics, engineering, and also symbolic and spiritual knowledge. The linear story of progress from the cave to today's advanced technology may be oversimplified. These insights do not diminish the accomplishments of modern science. Rather, they place them in a broader context. Perhaps we are not the first to achieve certain levels of sophistication. We may be part of a cycle of civilizations rising, reaching high complexity, and, for various reasons, environmental, military, or cosmic collapse. What remains are ruins and legends, and each cycle tries to decipher the enigma left by the ones before it. Religious symbols we take for granted today, the cross, ceremonial staff of power, have origins much older than the religions using them. The pointed hat worn by certain clerics, for example, resembles the ritual adornment of pre-Christian aquatic deities. The fish symbol adopted by Christianity also appears in ancient cults devoted to sea gods. In his comparative mythology research, Joseph Campbell showed that myths worldwide share symbolic patterns. Almost every culture has stories of catastrophic floods, heroes who die and return to life, cosmic serpents, or trees linking heaven and earth. The theory is that these themes represent profound psychological forces, archetypes repeating in the collective psyche. Flood beliefs might reflect real cataclysms, while also functioning as metaphors for transformative experiences. The cross, for instance, appears in Egypt, the Ankh, in pre-Columbian cultures, and in Neolithic monuments, always symbolizing the intersection of axes, whether the meeting of material and spiritual planes or other fundamental dualities. Later on, Christianity reinterprets the cross in the figure of Christ, yet the symbolic roots are far older. The caduceus, Hermes' staff entwined with serpents, also appears in Sumerian and Egyptian myths, and in the staff of Moses in Exodus, suggesting a common source of mythic inspiration. Carl Jung believed these symbols revealed collective, unconscious universal structures in the psyche manifested through similar imagery. Pyramids found in both Egypt and the Americas could be evidence of a shared inheritance, or at least a psychological pattern that views the man-made mountain as a way to approach the sacred. Flood narratives and culture heroes are ways the human mind records monumental catastrophes and reworks them into stories of inner cycles. Beyond psychological interpretations, it has also been suggested that many myths encode astronomical, mathematical, or philosophical knowledge. Hamlet's Mill argues that seemingly fantastic tales about sacred mills have connections to the precession of the equinoxes. Similarly, Egyptian rituals tied specific gods to certain constellations, blending astronomy and religion into one cohesive practice. A parallel process occurred in early Christianity, which adopted festivals on dates already sacred to Mediterranean solar cults. Numerous symbolic elements, such as divine birth during the winter solstice and a 3-day period of death and rebirth, follow earlier mythological patterns. Originally, myths were never meant to be literal explanations of reality, but transformative experiences that integrated ritual, symbol, and narrative to spark an inner awakening. Studying these symbols and myths with an open mind, without dismissing them as mere fantasies, or taking them as literal historical truths, reveals a wealth of meaning. Each culture, in its own way, expressed similar archetypes, pointing to deep truth about death, rebirth, sacrifice, and enlightenment. This symbolic language operates like a universal idiom, speaking to us emotionally and rationally, linking distant peoples through invisible threads of significance. Dominant materialistic cosmology in science sees human beings as products of random evolutionary processes, living in a universe without purpose. Death would be the inevitable end. However, for many traditional cultures, and even for cutting-edge researchers in various fields, this fails to account for certain evidence regarding consciousness. There are rigorous studies of children who recall past lives in great detail, later verified by factual data. Dr. Ian Stevenson and his successor, Dr. Jim Tucker, documented thousands of these cases at the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Virginia, challenging the assumption that such memories are mere childhood fantasies.
I pledge my service and
Near-death experiences also puzzle the scientific community. People without measurable brain activity have reported seeing details of the operating room, hearing conversations held elsewhere, or going through a life review. Physicians like Pim van Lommel have published these observations in scientific journals, stating that consciousness seemingly persists, at least for a while, without brain function, contradicting the notion that the mind is solely a byproduct of neural processes. In quantum physics, some theories suggest that consciousness is a fundamental element influencing subatomic particle behavior. David Bohm proposed that manifest reality, the explicate order, arises from a deeper, all-encompassing, implicate order where everything is interconnected. Amit Goswami says that monistic ideas of consciousness as the core of existence could solve quantum paradoxes, echoing spiritual traditions that have long claimed that the mind shapes or creates reality. If consciousness exists beyond matter, concepts of multiple incarnations or an afterlife gain plausibility. For many traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, and mystical Christianity, among others, earthly life is a stage for learning. Death is merely a transition to subtler states. This was long dismissed as superstition, yet it now draws some scientific attention as neurologists study the brain patterns of advanced meditators. Physicists explore non-linear models of time and transpersonal psychologists investigate deep experiences in altered states of consciousness. All of this implies a re-evaluation of the human condition. If we are more than just physical bodies, what is our purpose here? Many suggest that we undergo an evolving expansion of awareness through successive experiences or meditative practices that transform perception and being. This view departs from a purely mechanistic outlook and encourages values such as compassion, collective responsibility, and environmental stewardship. The topics explored ancient civilizations, esoteric traditions, religious symbolism, secret societies, and our spiritual destiny are not isolated subjects, but interconnected facets of a larger picture. Modern society, shaped by compartmentalization and specialization, often loses the thread that unites these domains. New findings about remote cultures with high levels of ingenuity, investigations into universal laws and subtle fields, recurring ancestral symbolism across cultures, and the presence of initiatory societies in the corridors of power challenge the notion of linear progress. We may be dealing with civilizational cycles and perhaps ancient solutions that became obsolete and were later rediscovered. The idea of a greater technical and spiritual heritage prompts us to question our role in the cosmos. When we widen the inquiry to include consciousness accounts of past life memories, near-death experiences, and quantum theories of mind, we see that uncovering who we truly are could demand reconciling science, spirituality, and philosophy. We do not have to abandon rigor or fall into baseless beliefs, but we might cultivate open dialogue among different methodologies, bringing together outer observation and inner exploration. We should then recover a more holistic view of humanity, something ancient traditions seem to manage more seamlessly by integrating disciplines and dimensions of existence. This does not mean dismissing our technological or scientific progress, but acknowledging the limits of a purely materialistic framework. The future might require merging modern capabilities with ancestral wisdom, creating more sustainable and humane practices and systems. We end our journey here, but the topic remains open. Questions about our mysterious past and the nature of our minds are far from settled. History is not perfect. New evidence may still transform everything we think we know. The same holds true for consciousness studies, which continue to surprise researchers. As Newton once said in a humble metaphor, I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, now and then finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, while the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. May this exploration shed light on how much we still have to discover and serve as an invitation to reflect, not only on what we once were, but on what we can become.
Se ha dicho que aquel que logra comprender esta cualidad a este dios Brahma, logra comprenderse a sí mismo y puede lograr realizarse. Te voy a contar la historia de su origen, la simbología y por qué es que se dice estas cosas. A Dios en el hinduismo se le califica como nirvana, sin cualidades, está más allá de la creación. Lo conseguimos, lo entendemos, lo intentamos comprender a través de sus comportamientos, a través de sus manifestaciones. Has escuchado hablar de muchas, Vishnu, Shiva, Lakshmi, Parvati. Cualquier forma, cualquier aspecto del universo, cualquier fuerza en el universo tiene un nombre, pero todo es una emanación de este absoluto. Una de las más grandes confusiones con este dios Brahma y con el absoluto es el nombre, porque este absoluto sin cualidades, este nirvana, se le llega a nombrar como Brahman o para Brahman, con N al final. El puro nombre confunde cuando mencionamos a Brahma, a este aspecto creativo. El dios Brahma representa la creación, estructura y ordena la energía para manifestarla. Es uno de los dioses más complejos, es de los principales, forma parte de la Trimurti, de la Trinidad hindú, junto con Shiva, el renovador y destructor, en el video, y Vishnu, el observador. Igualmente hicimos su video y los tienes en la descripción. La historia de Brahma nos empieza por contar que nace del ombligo de Vishnu, del preservador. Está en un estado de completa calma, está recostado sobre Namtasesha. Y cuando sueña, por eso es que se dice tanto en la India que Dios sueña la creación. Porque cuando Vishnu está recostado, empieza a soñar, y es que se desprende de su ombligo esta flor de loto de la cual emerge Brahma. ¿Y qué es lo que hace Brahma? Empieza a meditar. Con la sagrada energía femenina, con la ayuda de Devi, empieza a estructurar, a crear, a moldear, a ordenar incontables universos para al día de hoy tener esto que conocemos como cosmos, como creación. Recuerda, hay distintas variaciones y depende de la perspectiva. En otras, el punto, ese origen es Shiva, ¿no? Brevemente te cuento como en otro Purana se cuenta como Brahma y Vishnu ambos despiertan al mismo tiempo. Brahma ve que su flor de loto lleva a Vishnu y empiezan a debatir sobre quién creó a quién. Después de un tiempo, ven detrás de ellos un pilar de luz infinita. Empiezan a buscar el origen. Vishnu va hacia abajo en un jabalí, Brahma hacia arriba en un cisne. El principio y el fin de esta estructura de luz, hasta que se manifiesta Shiva, manifestándose como este para Brahma, como este absoluto, sin principio, sin fin, eterno. Por eso es que la perspectiva, pero no es que se contradigan una con la otra, simplemente lo están contando desde un punto de vista distinto. Pero es bien interesante porque muchas de estos Puranas son extremadamente gráficos y sin contexto parecieran ser escrituras muy raras, porque se empieza a describir como el dios Brahma, cuando éste está meditando, tiene incontables hijas, incontables hijos, y estos se casan entre sí. Cualquier persona, y a mí me pasó, pero empiezas a ver esto y dices, esto está bastante extraño. Pero los sabios preguntan, ¿qué pasa cuando se casa con la ira? Y de ahí nace la enfermedad. ¿Qué pasa cuando la ira también se casa al mismo tiempo con la lujuria? Nacen los celos. ¿Y qué pasa cuando los celos nuevamente se casan con la ira? Nace la violencia. Por eso es que dicen esta frase tan linda que aquel que empieza a comprender a Brahma no con el intelecto, sino con la intuición, se puede empezar a comprender a sí mismo. Por esto es que son tan gráficas las escrituras y los Puranas, porque nos están hablando no solamente de la creación allá afuera, de ese macrocosmos, sino del microcosmos del ser humano. El Vishnu dice que Brahma se da cuenta que va a necesitar ayuda. Su mismo ser no va a ser suficiente. Se dice a sí mismo, lo primero que voy a crear es hijos que me ayuden con esta creación, a estructurarla, a ordenarla, a darle sentido. Y crea las primeras formas que se conocen como los 4 Kumaras. 4 pequeñitos, 4 grandes sabios que designa Brahma para ayudarle en su creación. Estos 4 seres nacen sin deseos. No planta Brahma la semilla del deseo. En múltiples escrituras de la India se dice que lo que ata el alma a un cuerpo finito es el deseo. Con la ausencia de deseos, lo único que existe es unidad con el origen, en este caso representado en la forma de Vishnu. El objetivo de Brahma es que estos 4 Kumaras le ayudaran a continuar estructurando y ordenando y que al mismo tiempo poblaran el cosmos. Pero estos, al no tener deseos, le dicen a Brahma, oye, nos estás pidiendo jugar un papel en una mentira. Esto es ilusión. Nosotros solo nacimos para contar las glorias de nuestro Señor Vishnu. El único papel que vamos a jugar en tu creación va a ser servir como guías para dirigir a todas las criaturas de vuelta a casa, de vuelta a aquello que es real. Brahma aprende de su error y esta vez decide crear a 11 nuevos seres conocidos como los Prajapatis, los progenitores de todos los seres, y esta vez sí que planta la semilla del deseo en cada uno de ellos. Junto con estos Prajapatis crea a los 7 grandes rishis, a los 7 grandes sabios. Igualmente planta la misma semilla, pero el rol de los rishis iba a ser similar al de los kumaras. Pero estos rishis iban a tener un papel más activo dentro de la creación. Sí que iban a servir como guías, como pequeñas luminarias en el cosmos, pero iban a tener más actividad. Esto se dice que son los orígenes de todos los seres. Y aquí es donde entramos a la parte más simbólica e interesante. El Vishnu Purana poco a poco va nombrando a los hijos, hijas de Brahma. Dice, Brahma crea la compasión, Brahma crea la fe, Brahma crea la pereza, Brahma crea la lujuria, Brahma crea el dharma. Todas las cualidades, todas las fuerzas, todos los sentimientos, todas las cosas buenas y malas del mundo tienen su papel como hijos e hijas de Brahma. Las cualidades van descendiendo, se van degradando mientras se van casando unas con otras y van surgiendo. Si dos cualidades buenas como el deber y la fe se casan, van a tener hijos virtuosos. Lo más bello, lo más sabio y al mismo tiempo muy confuso es que todas estas cualidades se les da una personalidad y se cuentan historias alrededor de toda. En esto está fundamentado toda la filosofía hindú. Toda la confusión y al mismo tiempo toda esa profundidad, toda esa iluminación está fundamentado en esto, en personificar fuerzas y cualidades y crear historias alrededor de ellos. Porque ¿con qué es aquello con lo cual uno más resuena, sino con la historia? Te pueden contar, te pueden definir la fe, te pueden definir todas estas cualidades de forma súper específica. Pero cuando nos cuentan una historia alrededor de estas cualidades y que tiene hijos, que se casa, que sufre, que le pasa A, B, C o D, uno crea una conexión mucho más especial. Y de esta forma es que los rishis concluyeron que nos permitía este estilo, este modelo, entendernos mejor, ver cómo está funcionando esta fe, ver cómo la lujuria cuando se casa con el miedo nace la ira y de la ira puede nacer la violencia. Estos son los hijos y las hijas de Brahma tomando lugar dentro de nosotros, pero igual, cuando tu deber se casa con tu fe, da nacimiento a las más grandes virtudes, a hijas bellas, porque se les describe de esta manera, hijas radiantes, bellas, esculturales, imponentes. Pero una mente contaminada cuando lee este tipo de cosas tiende al exterior, a todo tipo de compulsiones, pero que están dentro de uno mismo. Cuando uno empieza a meditar, cuando uno empieza a absorberse, es que se da cuenta de que esa familia está sucediendo dentro, de que esas cualidades, que esos hijos e hijas de Brahma se van casando dentro de nuestra propia mente, de nuestras propias emociones, unos con otros, y van teniendo distintas ramificaciones, distintos hijos que nos hacen tener cierta personalidad, cierto carácter, pero estamos llamados a liberarnos. Para eso están todas estas cualidades. Para eso está, por ejemplo, la figura de Shiva, que quiebra todo, que destruye todo eso, diluye toda esa ilusión que se ha creado y nos devuelve al punto, nos devuelve a la esencia, a ese estado de nirvana, sin cualidades. Esta es la riqueza que tienen los textos de la India. Que, por cierto, miembros queridos de la comunidad de Aurora tienen las imágenes disponibles para